Greetings, fellow Earthlings. Dave Smith with another episode of And Another Thing with Dave. And another episode of Conversations with Tony. We will be covering a lot of ground in this episode, so stay tuned.
Wave Chief?
Tony, my friend, how are you, buddy?
Good, kid. How's it going?
Going all right. Going all right. I'm a little bit beside myself, and I called you the 911 call. I know you can relate. I know you've experienced the same kind of thing, and I needed a voice of reason because I'm absolutely losing my mind right now. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Wow. I talked to a friend of mine. She's middle of the road. She's a Democrat for sure. Blue through and through. Likes to think she's a progressive, right? Diehard kind of Warren man, right?
Okay.
Wouldn't really look at anything I sent her about Warren. I don't know why. Let me preface that with my mother. I'm a feminist. My mother was huge in the women's rights movement in the 1970s. Very fundamental, like very active in the movement. And I grew up with that. I grew up, my father went to the Selma, Alabama march in Martin Luther King in Selma, Alabama, after those 4 church students got killed.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Selma to Montgomery, right.
So those
the
four
the Edmund Pettus Bridge, right?
Yeah, those 4 students got killed. My father was studying to be a minister at the time, and he jumped on a bus. I think 4 buses went from California to that area to march and peacefully protest. And my father was one of those. So this is in my blood. To go against, to be for the underdog, to go against the grain, against the corporation, against fascist tendencies. And I'm rambling here a little bit, but I am so, oh my God, Tony, I'm almost shaking. So I talked to this friend of mine, and she was diehard Elizabeth Warren. So I quit sending her stuff, right? She's like, will you unsubscribe me from that Jimmy Dore show? Because Jimmy Dore kept talking about, like, every time Elizabeth Warren would lie about Bernie and slander him, he would show not only Bernie's record, but also Elizabeth Warren's past. So like, oh, here Elizabeth Warren is a Republican at 47 years old, and now she's preaching party unity, but then out of the corner of her mouth, she's calling Bernie a sexist and then calling him out. And then she did that stunt, which I'm sure you saw on CNN, knowing that the mics were still live, went up to Bernie and accused him of calling her a liar on national TV.
Right.
You saw that?
I did.
Right. And so she knew the breakdown that I saw of that is that she knew the mics were still on, and it was a great press opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Way to get her name back in the news, whether it was anything positive or negative, right? Because, bad press is still press, right?
Yeah.
So, long story short, finishing my monologue here, you can bear with me, brother. Long story short, Elizabeth Warren backs out, so I figure my friend Jessica is open. So I say, can we, and we're talking about pets. We're texting back and forth about pets. Like I dog sit her dog once in a while. I love her dog. And she knew my cat before my cat of 21 years passed away. And she sent me like 3 pictures of my cat that I don't even have. And I was like, oh, that's awesome, right? So we're starting there, right? So totally bonding, right? And then I'm like, well, all right, cats are cute and everything, and da, 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 da. And I'm like, well, can we agree? Fuck Biden. and I put fuck in all caps, right? Can we agree on fuck Biden? Like, right? Because Warren just announced that she dropped out.
Right.
So now it's between Biden and Bernie. And Warren and Biden were the only quote unquote progressives, even though Warren showed herself to be a complete fake progressive.
Really?
Well, and I can go into that if you want.
Well, no, but I mean, my whole take on this, Dave, is you're not going to like everybody 100%. And I know
No.
some of the things that Elizabeth Warren has backed, Dave, are really for consumers, workers.
Yes.
She might not be the perfect for you, but sometimes you gotta take what you can get, Dave. And at least they're progressive.
Yes, I agree, Tony. Warren is a pit bull for like against the Federal Reserve. She was awesome against Wells Fargo.
And with the Consumer Federal Credit Protection Bureau, Dave, so credit card companies can't rip you off.
Right. I love the
same day
2%
lenders can't charge Gambino's price. Gambino prices on stuff on money that you borrow.
Right. So I think you and I agree on all of these points, right? Those are all beautiful, wonderful things, right? What I don't agree on is why she would all of a sudden, and it happened like she drank Kool-Aid, like somebody slipped something in her coffee. All of a sudden, she's attacking Bernie. Right? Because I agree with all the things you said. Those are all fantastic. But now you're going to attack the guy who is like, I don't even want to say
the grandfather of the progressive movement.
Thank you. I don't even want to say Teflon Don because that's a bad reference. But you can't
invitation to that.
You can't blemish Bernie. You can't slander Bernie because he's been so consistent for 40 years.
Incredibly so, Dave.
The most of anyone I can name. And 40 years, Tony. I mean, I was 12 when he got into politics, right?
Yeah.
And he was preaching the fight against the man and the military-industrial complex, the fight for, against poverty, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Then, when none of us, myself included, were even paying attention to any of that shit.
I mean, hey, Dave, he voted against those stupid wars, right? And he votes against tax cuts for the rich and big corporations. Right there, Dave, you got me.
Boom. You got me. Bullseye. Yeah. Great place to start, right? Great place to start. But let's go back to Warren because this is really tripping me out with my friend Jessica because she thinks she's a progressive, Tony, and she's on our side. But her main thing is we can't have Trump, right? So it's one of these, right? And so I explained the Hillary thing to her with WikiLeaks and da 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 da. This is all proven that Hillary conspired with the DNC to steal the 2016 primary election from Bernie, therefore setting Hillary as the only opponent to Trump. Well, she turned out to not be a sufficient candidate to beat Trump. Now, there's multiple layers of irony in this. First of all, and I'll post a link to this on our podcast here on the channel. But TYT, the Young Turks Network, posted some of the WikiLeaks things, and it verifies that the DNC colluded with the Clinton campaign to totally slander Sanders, and they also went so far as to pick two quote unquote Pied Piper candidates, right? So these are candidates that Hillary and the DNC thinks are a slam dunk. Like, we'll prop these two guys up and then we'll definitely win. Well, guess who those two people were, Tony?
Hmm.
Ted Cruz and Donald Trump.
Wow.
So they actually picked and promoted Donald Trump as somebody that they thought they could slam dunk against.
Yeah. And it
And
totally
guess what
backfired.
happened? Trump slam dunked on them.
Yeah.
So here we are. Biden is Hillary 2.0 in my book.
I don't disagree.
He's got no policies. His only preaching point is we got to get rid of Trump. Well, that's not enough, because get rid of Trump for what? A worse Trump?
Yeah.
Right? What are your policies? So I know you agree with me on this. My friend Jessica said, she told me once, dude, her dad was a mean, child molesting Jewish man with blue eyes, and he's short, and apparently he looks a little bit like Bernie Sanders. One time she told me I could never vote for him. He reminds me of my dad.
Oh my God. What a ridiculous reason not to vote for somebody.
Now, her dad was convicted
Ew.
of molesting children that he took in as foster kids.
What a scumbag.
So we're talking about a miserable human being, right?
Right.
Now, there's a huge amount of trauma that would go along with that, right?
I can only imagine, Dave.
I can only fucking imagine, Tony. And thank God we
Thank
only
God.
have
Can you imagine? Yeah.
right? A lot of sympathy, a lot of empathy here. A lot of empathy here, right?
Well, thank God I can't empathize, but I can certainly
Well,
sympathize. You know what I
well,
mean?
you can't. You can empathize, because empathizing is trying to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and being like, "Ooh, that must be
But
fucked."
if you're empathizing, doesn't that mean you've been in those shoes before? You've walked
No,
that path before?
that's compassion. Compassion means you feel the same thing. Empathy just means like, "Oh, fuck, that's rough."
I thought that was sympathy.
Well, same. They're very
Oh.
close.
Anyway, we'll have to Wikipedia those.
Yeah, and I can do that here in a minute. But
Yeah. But go ahead.
but I want to let you go on this, Tony. But what I wanted to fire you up with was like, wow, looks like my dad don't give a fuck about the policies, not looking at the policies. And you know me, I'm a links guy. Like, I don't care what I believe. Show me a link to something, I'll watch it. And if it can change my mind, because my mind is always open, right?
Well, I
So I
like
asked
that.
her,
I
like,
agree.
as a friend, will you look at a couple things and not take my word on it, but make up your own mind after you watch what I watched? I want your opinion on that.
Well, I mean, Dave, to me, that's the only way to really think about stuff like this. I've taken different information, and not just hate watch or hate read something, but go, does this have any merit to it? Right? I mean, you know where I stand on this, Dave. Maybe some of our listeners, and hopefully we have some out there. But that's, to me, is the only way to go about it. You got to listen to the other side, Dave. You got to listen to things that you don't listen and read things that you might not agree with.
Right. Otherwise, you're just listening to your choir, right?
But after a while, Dave, I think it's fair to say that, okay, I've listened and heard and read enough about Rush Limbaugh. I don't need to hear him ever again. Okay, because I listened to him a bunch of times. So there comes a point, Dave, I think, where, okay, we're done with this now. But as you're saying, if you're not open-minded, Dave, that means you're closed-minded. And if you're closed-minded, that's just not practical thinking.
Well, and not critical thinking, right? And going back to, what is it? I believe it's the second mandated English class in college, is critical thinking.
Yeah, that's pretty important.
So I want to go ahead and play a couple clips here. Here is a clip of Biden completely gaffing. So just in case we're thinking like, oh, Biden, electability, right? A lot of people are saying electability with Biden. So let's listen to this and see if Biden has that electability.
You never know.
Bear with me one
For
second.
your dad, first African American state senator in the state of Delaware. Everything about. And by the way, you know, I sit on the stand and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
Wow. There's Biden for you. Mr. Hairy Legs loves kids jumping on his lap. You know, and that's one of the Biden gaffes, but
Welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight.
There are a bunch. Excuse me, we got a little crazy back roll going, autoplay. So that's one of the Biden gaffes, but there are so many. I'm gonna find some other ones here. Biden gaffes. I'm just gonna Google it right now while I'm on the line with you. I've got a couple saved, but let's here we go with The Hill.
Why you texting? Why? You're getting nervous, man. And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys. I'm not sedentary. I get up and no, let him go. Let him go. Look, the reason I'm running is because I've been around a long time and I know more than most people know. And I can get things done. That's why I'm running. And you want to check my shape on, let's do push-ups together, man.
The reason I'm running is because I've been around for a long time and I know a lot of things that nobody knows.
I'm
you
back,
want to check shape? Let's do push-ups. All right, I'm playing some Biden apps here, honey, and this is going to be hilarious. So the last one was this guy stood up, asked him some questions like, the reason I'm running is because I know a lot of things that nobody knows. And you want to go toe-to-toe? Let's do some push-ups. Like, dude, you're 70, all right? Like, what do you think? You're trying out for like an action movie? Like, I don't know, Die Hard 14?
Liam Neeson wasn't available, apparently.
Yeah, Liam Neeson and what's his name, Die Hard 14 guy weren't available either.
Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis, thank you very much. You know, the 65-year-old superheroes that are going to save you from a burning building or go find your missing daughter in some South American country that's been abducted, even though they're 65, they have skills. So check this out, Tony. This is the last part of this clip.
Let's run. Let's do whatever you want to do. Let's take been to a caucus? No, you haven't. You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were. Make sure make sure you have the record player on at night, the phone. And so he was up on the board, wouldn't listen to me. I said, hey, Esther, you, off the board, or I'll come up and drag you off. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. I'm beginning to see why your wife left you. You cut off the 6-foot length of chain. You fold up and said, you walk out with that chain. And you walk and said, you may cut me, man, but I'm going to wrap this chain around your head. If you agree with me, go to Joe 30330 and help me in this fight. Thank you very much.
Wow. I mean, like, wow. Talk about somebody burying themselves.
Who's his speechwriter? Sarah Palin?
Oh, fuck. It must be Donald Trump.
I mean, that
Right?
sounds like a Sarah Palin speech. Just like,
Well,
I don't know what you're talking about. You're totally rambling.
Oh, my God. Well, I
Put
gotta
your
go
foot
back.
in your mouth.
I'm gonna play this other clip for you, and listeners, I apologize, but you have to hear this, Tony. Oh God, Tony, it's horrible. Check this out. This is really bad. He's making a speech, and all of a sudden it
Probably for your
segues.
dad, first African American state senator in the state of Delaware. Everything about. And by the way, I sit on the stand, and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And
Does anybody want to hear about his hairy legs, Tony?
Well, I mean, is he trying to sound folksy and trying to relate to people?
He's got like a little.
It.
He's got an 11-year-old black girl next to his side. He's got a couple black women behind him. So it looks like he's trying to relate to people. But listen how he weaves this story. So he's in a pool and he's got hairy legs.
the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
What the fuck? So I learned about roaches, and I learned about kids, and I love kids jumping on my lap.
Yeah, that is such a weird, meandering stuff to say. I don't know where to start with that.
He just took a left turn like he had an aneurysm or something, and was like, yeah, shorts are on the highway. Of course, your shorts are on the highway.
I mean, that sounds like a guy who's been drinking too much at the bar, and he starts talking to you, and you just can't get away from him.
Right. Except there's no slurring or anything, so it's just like It's like Alzheimer's or something.
Wow.
Right? So this is the fucking guy that you're going to put up against the Apprentice Master?
Well, and Dave, think about this, that all these other candidates have jumped out of the race now, dropped out of the race. Warren hasn't announced who she's going to support, but everybody else is supporting Joe Biden.
Right.
I am so disappointed. And, Dave, if Elizabeth Warren, throws her support to Joe Biden, to me, a lot of her progressive credentials are going out the window. I'm telling you,
Right.
I don't want to say what's going to happen the next, go around or whatever, but I'm going to lose some respect for Elizabeth Warren here. If she doesn't get behind Bernie in this, I'm going to be really pissed off, because Bernie's the progressive in the race. Biden is, his nickname, has anybody given him the nickname to suggest that he is just status quo Joe? Shouldn't that be his nickname?
Yeah.
Has anybody given him a nickname yet? A Sleepy Joe. I think Trump calls him Sleepy Joe. I call him Status Quo Joe.
I think he's got a bunch of nicknames, Tony. I call him Groper Hair Sniffer Joe Biden.
Groper.
Groper Joe. That's my favorite. Groper Joe.
All right. And we're in a strange place in politics right now, Dave, where a guy who is a sex offender, a bigot, a liar, a cheat, and a guy who doesn't really know much about governing or politics, for that matter.
Pathological liar.
And a guy who doesn't seem to want to change anything really looks like he could get the Democratic nomination. I mean, how did we get here?
Well, can you say Wall Street?
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Remember the Occupy movement?
Yeah. Seems like a distant memory, doesn't it?
Distant memory. It was only fucking 8 years ago. So, Occupy movement, right? Everybody's fed up. Like, these banksters, they gotta go. I lost my house. Kids were camping out on Wall Street. I mean, this was beautiful, Tony. This is the first time we've seen this since 68, since the last time. But it got kiboshed. It got squashed so hardcore. The only person that was really speaking for it was Bernie. All these other politicians were against it. You know? And Obama put the kibosh on the Occupy movement. He encouraged the police to up their tactics, and we all saw the abuse of peaceful protesters.
Well, he clearly was not a progressive. He clearly was not that guy that we were hoping for.
Thank you.
And, it's unfortunate, Dave, that, on the Republican side, you can go Tea Party and get candidates elected. But on the other side, on the left, you go Occupy Wall Street, and that doesn't seem to move anybody.
Can we back up on the Tea Party a little bit?
Sure.
So, Tea Party, although it seemed like a grassroots movement, the seed money, and I mean millions and millions, probably tens of millions of dollars, came from the Koch brothers.
Oh, no doubt about that. Absolutely.
Right. So they fired up all these people who were like, had a grievance. And of course, our country's, kind of fucked right now. It's been stolen from us. So a lot of people have a grievance, but the Koch brothers fired them up to have a grievance and to direct it against, trying to do the same thing. Like, we need less regulation. We need less government. They're just fucking everything up.
Incredible, huh?
Incredible.
What a sales job that they did. And you got to hand it to them, Dave. You really do. Because if you think about the way it went down, we'll go to the Bush administration and deregulation of the economy, right? Complete deregulation, tax cuts for the rich, major tax cuts that overwhelmingly benefit the most rich people, the richest people, and then a huge expenditures on war and the military spending. Okay. So you get all those awful things. What happens? The rich get richer, the poor get poorer, the air gets dirtier. And then you have the economic crash that proves beyond a doubt this kind of stuff doesn't work. What happens to the debt and the deficit? They skyrocket. Okay? Proving all this stuff is wrong. This is exactly what we're not supposed to do. You get 8 years of Obama, which calms a lot of this stuff down, digs us out of a major hole, and even Andy Meyer admits this now. Like, okay, Obama did some good things and he got the ball rolling. Okay? He's at least willing to concede that. But then people want to run right back to the same stupid policies as if they forgot what happened at 2007 and then the crash in 2008. October of 2008, Dave, is significant. Why? Lehman Brothers crashed, and it was official. The slide had turned into a meltdown. Okay? And yet, these people, David, they go right back to those three main principles of policymaking. that these do not work, and yet, okay, yeah, here we're going to do it again. And yet they can sell people on this.
Gonna double down.
I just don't get it. How do people get sucked? And again, Dave, I know you're gonna people are gonna say, okay, listen to Tony. He thinks that he knows it all and he's right. But how many times do we got to tell you that giving rich people tax breaks doesn't help poor and working class people? How many times do we got to tell you that? How many times do we got to show you that it doesn't work?
Tony, I didn't ever hear you say you think you got it figured out and that you think you have it right and listen to me. I didn't ever hear you say that. What I heard you say is that there's some bullshit going on here. There's a double standard. There's a fucking scam going on that's right between our eyes, right in front of our eyes. There's the elephant in the living room, and nobody's talking about it.
Yeah, the elephant in the room, and he just took a big dump right in the middle of in the couch.
And it's just like, and everybody's plugging their nose, but nobody's talking about it.
No, but Dave, you talked about that sales job that the Koch brothers did to make Occupy Wall Street and fire up all these people. And it's just, folks, have you not figured this out? That not paying taxes, how do you run a society by not paying taxes? And yet most of these people on the right, Dave, they support more war and more military spending. Well, how do we pay for that?
I got an experiment, Tony. Why don't you and I try not paying taxes for 3 years and see what happens?
We'll frickin' be in jail.
Yeah, exactly. Like Al Capone. How did they get Al Capone? Not on fucking murder, not on espionage, not on racketeering. They got him on tax evasion.
I just, this is what that frustrates me so much, Dave, is that you can have proof and people still don't care. They still don't believe it. How did they sell people on, Dave? How did they sell people the idea that if you give more money to rich people, poorer people will be better off? How did they sell them on that?
Thank you. And you brought it full circle back to my friend Jessica, which I don't want to harp on her. I love her. She's a good friend of mine. I can't wait to dog sit her dog again. I love her dog Buddy. He's amazing. And I'm not going to let this ruin a friendship.
Good for you, Dave.
But it's tough for me, Tony. It's tough for me because I'm doing battle like you are with a couple people where you love these people. But like, holy fuck, after you talk to them for a minute, you want to fucking punch your head through the wall.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why are they stuck on stupid? They're not stupid people.
No.
Jessica right now is going for her master's degree in counseling.
Yeah. She's obviously not a dipshit.
Not a dipshit at all. But she's a little bit pre-programmed.
Dave, I think a lot of this, goes back to right-wing hate radio and Fox News. I think people have been set up for years and years and years to believe this kind of shit, and they'll just buy stuff that Donald Trump sells them. If Sean Hannity doesn't tell it to them, they don't believe it. It's like I told you about my buddy Roger Emheiser, who used to be a conservative, really not hardcore conservative anymore, starts talking about Bernie sometime last week, and he says to me, "Oh, so you're okay with us turning into Venezuela, aren't you?" And he said it with exactly that tone of voice. And I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a second here. You've seen what happened with the Bush administration, right? Talked about what happened, what kind of policies. The end result was that. It's proven fact those things don't work. Not a problem with that, right? But what might happen with Bernie, that's what I'm worried about. Andy Meyer. Well, I got to know, Tom, Bernie might get elected. I might have to sell my house. Yeah, because everything's going to collapse if Bernie gets elected.
Tony, let me interject something real quick.
Go ahead.
I want to tell all of our listeners, we don't want to use last names because we don't want anybody getting any hate mail or anything like that. Let's
Right.
keep it on a first name basis, Tony. And all of our listeners out there, don't you dare send anybody any threatening or hateful stuff because we're just having a conversation here, right? These are people that we care about and we love,
And they're
we
good
just don't.
people. They're
And
good people. They really are.
I don't agree with them on a bunch of things, but so that gets us fired up and wanting to have a conversation. But I don't want anybody to ever do anything negative, including slander somebody on Facebook.
Exactly. Exactly, Dave.
From here on out,
if we can't be civil, if you can't be civil, don't engage in the conversation. If you don't like what somebody's going to say, then don't have the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. If you can't be civil, just fuck off. Because nobody wants to play that way. And so just do me a favor, Tone, from here forward, let's just use first names. Let's keep everybody anonymous.
Good idea, Dave.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's absolutely the way it should be done.
Yeah, let's do that.
We're going to have disagreements, and maybe, you can learn something from somebody else. You never want to be stuck in, I have all the answers and you can't convince me of anything else. But after a while, Dave, when you get evidence to something over and over again, at some point you got to say, this is how it is. People are still arguing, Dave. You want to go back to the Koch brothers, Dave? I suggest to everybody, there's a book called Dark Money by Jane Mayer, okay? And she goes into this whole thing of, Dave, years ago, Dave, even Republicans believed in climate science. You know that? They actually believed it. They were ready to start taking steps towards this. And then you had a bunch of dark money, a bunch of it by the Koch brothers, and they rounded up other people of like-minded people to what? To fix it so that they don't have to pay more taxes and their businesses won't get regulated. They hired a firm, I think it was Smith and Knowlton. Don't quote me on that. It's something Knowlton. I believe it was Smith and Knowlton, but don't quote me.
Okay, not all Smiths are cool.
Dave, and what was the product this PR firm was selling? The product is doubt. And who did they work for before they worked for the Koch brothers doing climate change denial? They worked for the tobacco lobby, Dave. Remember the guys going in front of the committees and saying, no, smoking is not addictive. Yeah, okay. That's what they did, Dave. And they were able to sell people on this.
Tony, do you mean the commercials where they would hire an actor, say Ronald Reagan, to wear a doctor's white jacket, white smock, I think it's called, whatever?
Yeah.
And tell you about the benefits of tobacco?
I don't remember about the benefits. I don't remember that one. Oh my God, they really went that far?
Yeah, the flavor, the this, the that. They're just promoting the positives while wearing a fucking doctor's jacket, Tony.
Yeah.
Fucking give one to your kid. They're great.
These are fantastic.
And you remember growing up, right? We had those candy cigarettes where if you blow them, it looked like a puff of smoke.
The powdered sugar would puff out. Right, exactly.
It looked you were having like a cigarette. And being of that generation, Tony, do you know when I smoked my first cigarette?
Yeah, when you were 10.
5.
5?
5, Tony.
Oh, my Lord.
My neighbor had me stealing cigarettes from my parents and giving them to him. You know when I learned to inhale? 9.
Yikes.
My babysitter taught me how to French kiss and how to inhale cigarettes. Super, super grateful for the first part, but really? You had to be a smoker? Nasty.
I mean, and that's the thing, though, Dave, because you can sell people pretty much on anything. Smart people, you can sell them on stuff. And no matter how much evidence comes out later on, they still believe it.
Yeah.
You know, Andy, again, I hate to harp on Andy, but he is your typical Trump supporter. You know, he literally said to me or texted me, and he's in this text, he said, I'm not saying Trump's always great, you know, but I'm sure Obama had his moments, but I just can't remember any of them. So I point out the obvious thing about Obama, and he actually did come around, like I said. It's like, okay, yeah, I guess he did some good things and got the ball rolling. But here's a guy, Dave, that still believes in trickle-down economics. And it's like he can't bring himself to admit that George W. Bush was a bad president. Like, this didn't work out, you know, and yet these guys still believe in all those same policies that I just mentioned. Like, somehow they didn't work before, right? The crash into but let's try it again anyway. Let's just double down on these. And I can't get through to any of these people, Dave. And these are some of the people that you and I deal with on Facebook from time to time. You know, some of those guys out there who are just, Donald Trump is literally a god. Literally a god. This guy can do no wrong. And
we've been waiting for him. He's our savior.
And what, Dave, now this coronavirus thing, and I don't want to go all political on it because this is so much more above all the other stuff that we've talked about.
Big fail, Tony.
People are dying, Dave. This is so much. Well, you know what? Actually, it's not above the war stuff, because the war stuff, people were dying too. Okay. But Donald Trump is literally going on television saying the exact opposite things that the scientists that are in his administration later have to come out and tell people. No, a vaccine is not going to be ready in 3 or 4 months. No, it isn't. That's what Trump said. And then he blames Obama for something, because Obama did something to make this testing, and they're talking about it like, no, this is just not true.
Yeah, let me jump in on the coronavirus thing.
Go ahead.
So you know me, I don't wave the Obama flag at all.
No, I know that.
As a matter of fact, I call Obama the Trojan horse. I think, and I don't talk this way at all, and I'm talking this way to drive home a point emphatically. I think they gave us the N-word as a Trojan horse. Here's one of your own. Here's a person of the people that turned out to just be another Wall Street shill. He kept all the wars going. He expanded them. He took us from 2 wars to 7. He became the drone bomber in chief. And I want to preface all this with, I had so much hope for him.
Yeah.
I voted for him the first time. I
agree. I did too.
I was like, fuck yes, we got a black president. Fuck yeah. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, fuck, the next barrier is a woman president. Bam.
Right? Yeah, see, I just wasn't thinking. For me, Dave, I'm thinking, great, a black president. I think America really stepped up, and we showed that we're past that thing. But I'm thinking about the policies, Dave, and on several of those policies that you just mentioned, he just let us down.
Horrible. He didn't just let us down, Tony. That's being way too kind.
But you watch, though, David, as we get further and further away from his presidency, watch how historians are going to treat this, as far as the basic idea, Dave, of what he inherited and what he bequeathed are completely different. And he's got to get credit for that.
I agree with that, and I give him credit for that. However, like we've discussed in the past, I don't think a president has that much control over the economy. Yes, they can appoint people to the Federal Reserve, Yes, they can pass legislation, but the Federal Reserve is the one that controls the interest rate and the inflation rate. So the Federal Reserve controls our money straight up. Now, the president can go to war, and then all of a sudden stocks in Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and all these, 500 different companies, there's way too many of them. All their stocks shoot up because, oh, guess what? Motorola, communications, right? Bullet manufacturers, gun manufacturers, telecommunications people, tires manufacturers, the people that manufacture, I don't even know who manufactures armored vehicles. You can take a normal vehicle and you can armor it. So those people make a ton of money. Their stock goes through the roof, right?
Right.
So soon as you drop a bomb on a new company, boom! It's payday, baby.
Well, that's why, Dave, these policies and who's setting the policies makes a difference. Because when you're George W. Bush and you say, let's go, and we go into Iraq and Afghanistan, and we have no real plan to get out, then those stocks just absolutely boom, and those companies make a lot more money, and they turn around and support those types of politicians to keep that type of thing going. And then if you turn around and say, you know what, I think we're going to give tax cuts to really rich people. Well, that's why most really rich people, Dave, support Republican policies. I'm not saying Democrats don't have their own rich guys, but the vast majority of them are always going to vote with Republicans. Why? Because if you're the Koch brothers,
they're voting for their money. They're not voting for a party.
They're saying to the Koch brothers are saying, I don't want my businesses regulated more. I want them regulated less, and I don't want to pay more taxes. And if I can put $100 into a politician and get $10,000 back on tax breaks, who do you think you're going to support?
Tony.
That seems pretty easy.
Tony, even if you invest $1 million in that congressperson and you only get 100,000 back, guess what? That's a tax deductible donation.
David, this is why we need real progressive policymakers.
Are you hearing me on this?
I am. They just make a ton of money, and they make money hand over fist, and this is how the whole thing works.
And then they can give all that money, but then they get credited it back. It's a tax write-off. What the fuck? So you can supersede our government and then be reimbursed. That's what we're saying. Right?
Well, and Dave, I think that's why when I see that corporations are afraid of certain politicians and the right wing especially starts attacking some of those people, that's what kind of draws me to those people that are being attacked. Because you must be attacking them because they're going to take something away from you, something that you're doing. They're not going to let you do anymore. And that's the kind of people I want to support, Dave. That's the Bernie Sanders that I want to support.
Tony, thank you for saying that, because I think you encapsulated our entire conversation right there. Right there. You and I are not worshiping a person. I've only become hip to Bernie in the last, 8-10 years, something like that. Right? I didn't know who the fuck he was before that. He was the, governor of or mayor of a podunk, governor or whatever, podunk little Vermont. I'm way over here in California. Did not matter. But all of a sudden he started saying things that leapt beyond the platform of where he was, and it started resonating with all of us. And that's what I'm about, Tony. I'm about policies. Policies, not personalities. Tell me what you're going to do. I don't care who you are, really. I mean, the whole Bill Clinton blowjob thing, like if that would have happened after 5 p.m., non-issue. The only issue is, dude, you did it on the clock. We were paying you while you did that. Like, that's not cool.
know there was a time element to that. I just, I thought we were such a puritanical, to some degree, a puritanical society, especially on the face of it, right, Dave? Underneath, everybody loves, everybody loves their vices, okay?
Yeah.
But on the face of it, especially with our politicians, you're supposed to be squeaky clean. And oh my God, we get so upset if somebody's doing something like that. And to me, Dave, I'm like, well, I don't like that he lied in front of Congress. To me, that's not good, obviously. But do I really care if he's having an affair on his? No, I'll tell you the truth, I really don't. It really doesn't.
I don't either, Tony. That's on Hillary. And guess what? Hillary claims to be a feminist, claims to be progressive. Dude, she didn't break up with her dude after he cheated on her. Like, I don't know how many. I saw a poster, the 176 women that Bill Clinton has had sex with. And it showed a little fucking snapshot, like a yearbook picture of each one. 176 women, Tony, right? So let's even assume that that's like hyper sensationalism, right? Let's assume they're off by 75%. The 25 women that Bill Clinton...
You're talking about after he was married, right? That's what the deal is?
Oh, yeah, no. Bill and Hillary have been together since college.
Right.
So anybody that he has had sex with has been an affair, like basically after high school. So what kind of feminist sticks by her guy the 5th time, the 6th time, the 7th time, the 8th time? Right?
Well, she apparently really knew that he was going somewhere. You know what I mean?
Well, and now you get where I'm going. So is this a feminist or is this a power-hungry
opportunist?
Total power whore that will do anything to achieve power and stay in power and get money. And I say that's what's up. Because you look at the track record and it just kind of spells itself out, Tony. Like I said, poster, 176 women. Oh, Epstein, the Lolita Express. Bill Clinton flew on it 26 times.
The Lolita Express, wow.
Here's the clincher, though, Tony. Hillary flew on it 4 times. So, were they molesting children together? Were they sacrificing children together? Drinking like...
Oh, geez, Dave, are you really going there?
I'll go there.
Sacrificing, really? This is a murder thing?
I'm raising questions.
Children?
Who knows? Why did Epstein have a soundproof shrine? You've heard of this on the island, right? The pedophile island?
Vaguely, yeah.
There's a shrine that's totally soundproofed. It's got like 3-foot thick walls. Why?
I've never heard of that, but I'll take your word for it. I just, for me, for that kind of stuff to go that far, I got to see more proof. And
I'm not saying it is, Tony. I'm saying, what the fuck?
Because, I mean, they're saying that, Tom Hanks is a part of this pedophile ring that was run out of the pizza parlor in New York. You know what I mean?
He might be, dude. It reaches deep. I don't know. There's a bunch of people that I had a lot of respect for it. Kevin Spacey.
Saying that to smear people.
I used to love Kevin Spacey. I still do. I mean, he's an actor. And once again, I want to separate, like, Just because somebody's good at something doesn't mean they're a saint, right?
No, of course not.
Like if somebody's a really good rock singer, doesn't mean he's a good person, doesn't mean he should be a role model for your kids. So just like these actors, right? They might be really good at acting because they had such a fucked up childhood that it's easy for them to assume somebody else. I mean, for all we know, they're the most twisted of people, right?
Maybe. I mean,
I'm just
could
I'm
be.
just throwing the devil, benefit of doubt on their behalf, and devil's advocate kind of thing, right? Like I don't know what's going on. All I know is there's some fucking crazy shit going on. There's all this talk, and it's not one or two people talking, right? So there's this soundproof like thing built on Epstein's island, and it's built to mimic like the Temple of David or some shit in Israel, right? So it's built specifically, dude, like millions of dollars to build this thing, right? Like they didn't just throw up like, oh yeah, here's like a little cabana over here or whatever, right? Like, wow, weird. Why soundproofed? And now you're flying all these underage kids over there, and you got this soundproof thing. Huh.
Well, you know what? There is, as far as that smear goes, Dave, and I always want to have more proof before I believe some stuff like that. But if you're connected to Jeffrey Epstein, you got dirt on you. There's just no other way around it. That guy was so filthy and so out there. If even no matter how tight or loose your connection is to him, people are going to look at you funny. He's just got that kind of dirt on him now. And you talk about these kind of conspiracies, Dave, and it's, again, I don't say that they're not true, but when you get certain things like the pedophile situation with Catholic priests and how much that was denied for so long, and now as the years have gone on and more information has come out and more people have come out, Dave, and gone on the record as pointing the finger at these people, after a while you can't say it's not true. Right?
I agree.
It's just true. But until that happens, Dave, until that kind of stuff happens and it becomes, what do you call it? I guess I could call it mainstream belief, because all these different outlets, and different journalists are like, you know what? Some of the stuff is just plain true. You got people going on the record saying this happened, and you just can't deny it anymore. The Catholic priest thing is one. The Penn State issue. Now there's one at Michigan University, Dave. And more people are coming out and saying, yeah, these guys molested us back many, many years ago. It's just...
And it was all hush-hush.
And it was all hush-hush for the longest time.
And the school probably knew and made it go away.
Well, you heard about the Joe Paterno situation at Penn State a million years ago. The great coach, he died a number of years ago.
It's horrible.
He had that one assistant coach that was molesting underage boys in the shower, like on the campus. And apparently Paterno knew about this for quite some time and didn't do anything about it.
Now is this different than the one I'm thinking about, the fucking wrestling coach?
Oh, that's the Peterson. Come on, Dave. What?
So this is different. So you're talking Penn State football, right?
Yes.
Okay, Penn State football. That guy got busted
for
doing exactly what you're talking about. Now I'm talking about what was it? It was a movie made about this guy, and he developed a wrestling camp, and he would invite people out to this camp, and then he would fucking molest them.
But you're talking, isn't that the one? It's the Republican congressman that's been linked to that, right?
Yep.
Jordan.
And there was an Olympic wrestler that went down with it.
Wow.
Because he had this amazing Olympic wrestler. This guy killed it, and he brought him on as like the trainer.
Yeah. Oh, there are quite a few of those. They had this quite a few.
Tony. They had this whole thing going where you would send him your kid for the summer, basically. Like, wow.
Just some absolutely sick stuff.
Talk about string them up by the nuts, right?
Spotlight. If anybody's seen the movie Spotlight, they know what we're talking about. I mean, this goes through a whole the Catholic Church and years and years of molestation, and people just wouldn't believe it. Marlon and I were watching Netflix a couple of months back, and they had this series on about I think it was the Philadelphia Archdiocese, Dave, and they had this one super sicko priest that he was just being switched from parish to parish, right? And
that's what they do.
These kids. It's on Netflix, and apparently, Dave, he had ties to the local government, the local police force. He was setting up some of the policemen with some underage girls. I mean,
wow. So he was a pimp?
Mind-boggling this kind of stuff is, and because he was a priest and they were looked up to, as these father figures, right? As these beacons of society, these leaders of society, and they were getting away with this stuff for years and years and years. It was just so impossible.
This guy was
true.
You're telling me this guy was actually pimping children?
He was actually pimping children.
Wow. Wow.
Again, Dave, here I am. I cannot remember the name of the series. And it's a documentary on Netflix. And after a while, Dave, one person came forward, another person came forward, another person came forward. And so many of these people that came forward, Dave, were many years older or younger, were in different parishes, different schools. So, no, they didn't all collude with each other to try to railroad some guy. They didn't know each other. And as time went on, and more of them started to speak up. And now, of course, these people are some of them are old. I mean, these people some of these things took place in the 60s. This guy kept getting transferred from parish to parish, and he was in the archdiocese, Dave, for 35 years or something.
Wow.
It's this absolutely sick thing. And so I never want to say, Dave, that these things aren't possible. But until those kind of things come out and these people are speaking out, that's when I start going, okay, you can't deny this anymore. You just have to that's it. This is true now. That's it.
This might be the one you're talking about. The Keepers?
That's it. That's it, Dave. Yes. The Keepers.
I just
Anybody
Googled
gets a chance to see that, check it out. If you think these things can't happen, they can. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say the Clintons are murderers, the Clintons are molesters, and they're drinking blood of children. I'm not trying to say anything like that. I'm not going to go there.
But you can't prove that they're not.
But I don't want to stain somebody, Dave, by saying you can't prove that they're not. That doesn't work for me.
I agree.
That doesn't work for me. But whenever we get this idea that no way can these things, this is way too bizarre, let's not say that either, because
Let's not forget history, right?
Nothing is too bizarre. History has told us that.
Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my God, yeah, that's true.
Right? So here's this guy, and this is out of a movie, right? I'm going to recite some true shit, and this is going to sound so freaking mind-blowing that if you're young and you haven't heard of Jeffrey Dahmer, you're going to think I'm making some shit up, and you should go Google this. So Jeffrey Dahmer used to go to gay bars and abduct and seduce people back to his house thinking
Right.
they were going to have sex, and then he would kill them. But he didn't just kill them.
No.
He killed them. He kept people as vegetables by drilling a hole in their head and pouring acid in their brain. So he kept a living fuck puppet, right? Like a fuckable zombie, right?
Yeah.
He did that. Then not only did he do that, but then when he killed the people, he used to like to put them in these contortionistic poses. One of these poses, Tony, is freakily, it's almost identical, but it's freakily resemblant to this piece of art that Tony Podesta, John Podesta's brother, right? So John Podesta, the head of the Hillary campaign, John and Tony Podesta, brothers, they're the like fourth and fifth most influential people in Washington. How? They're lobbyists. So one of them has a PR firm, the other one has a lobbying firm, and they work lock and chain, right? Now, John Podesta was tied hardcore to the Pizzagate thing. And you look at this piece of artwork that his brother, Mike Podesta, has hanging in the giant foyer, right? Giant entryway. Like he's got like this fucking house that looks like what the fuck is it? Frankly, Scarlet, I don't give a damn.
Something
What
from
the hell's
Gone.
that movie? Gone with the Wind. Thank you. So two giant staircases that go up on left and the right, right, and then meet up in the middle. Giant, ridiculous entryway, right, and then this huge foyer.
Era.
Yeah, and in this huge foyer, he's got this statue hanging, and it looks like Jeffrey Dahmer's beheaded victim in a contortion pose. It's all. It's
he was
all
really
gold.
inspired, huh?
It's all gold plated, and it's this thing arcing backwards in a position that you and I could never reach, and its head has been chopped off.
Yeah, see, I didn't even know Dahmer did that.
Yeah, he did.
I knew he drilled holes in them to make them into a zombie-like state. He cannibalized them, kept body parts in his refrigerator.
And then he had them freeze in weird positions.
Yeah, he was freakier than the freakiest.
Yeah.
He outdid a bunch of other serial killers in weirdness.
In weirdness. And then here, let's blow our listeners' minds with this, Tony. How did he get busted? Well, this isn't even what got him busted. The smell got him busted. But because he was in a fucking apartment.
Yeah.
He was doing this in an apartment complex, dude.
Yeah.
So he had bodies decomposing in 55-gallon drums full of acid in his apartment. And he'd gotten away with this for who knows how many bodies.
It was nearly a decade that he was active, I think, right?
I don't know. I want to say 15 victims.
Yeah, I'm not really sure, Dave, to be perfectly honest.
Might be more than that. Nobody knows for sure because he was decomposing them in acid. So it breaks the bones and everything down. But the freaky thing, and I'm sure you heard this, is he had this, what was a Laotian boy, I believe, like 11-year-old Laotian boy, something like that. And this guy escaped his apartment and ran out naked, bleeding from the anus.
Right. And the cops returned him.
Flagged down a police officer, bleeding from the anus and naked, running out into traffic like, help. And then Jeffrey Dahmer comes up and like, oh, we just had like a lover's skirmish.
Yeah,
and the guy didn't really talk English. So the cops let him fucking take him home. And then he killed him.
Yeah, I remember hearing that in one of those many profiles that have been done on Dahmer. And like again, you talk about how weird can this get? That's pretty weird.
I mean, that makes it movie like, right? You're like,
It really
what?
does. Yeah.
Because the guy was almost free. Like, oh, here's the cops. And then the cops give him to the killer. Oh my God.
And how, I mean, I can't even imagine how that scene would have went down. Like the Laotian boy, he's not crying and fighting and trying to run away. How, I don't.
Tony, you know exactly how it went down.
That he just walked back into Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment and allowed the door closed and the police to leave. How did that work out?
No, I need to be a little bit graphic to explain this. And once again, I don't believe this, and I'm using inflammatory language to drive the point home. Right? But the cops saw a gay lovers quarrel, right? And they were like, oh, you effing faggots, probably, right? Being racist redneck cops. So Jeffrey Dahmer comes up, oh, no, I got this, like, and they're probably just like, oh, fucking whatever, let's get the fuck out of here.
I mean, it must be, because there's no way the victim at that point would go completely willingly back into the apartment, right?
No, there's no way in hell. And apparently the victim didn't even talk English. So although he was screaming and shit and bleeding and naked, the fucking cops basically gave him back to Jeffrey Dahmer and said, you know, fucking take your shit inside.
God. Unreal.
Fucking horrid, right? Like out of a movie, like worst nightmare, like worst response you could ever hope for, right?
Yeah. Do you think? Like, oh my God, that's like the fire department showing up and a building's on fire and just like, oh, it'll put itself out and leaving.
Right. Or these stories you hear about where like you call the police because something's going on and then they actually shoot your family member.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
Only thing the authorities are in on it.
Well, maybe not in on it, but just like overreacting or not reacting. In the case of Jeffrey Dahmer thing, they were like, let's get out of here.
No, but in a situation, not in this particular situation, but I'm saying in the other situations where victims have like, oh my God, I can't believe this is going on. I better call the police. And you call the police and like, oh, the police are on this guy's payroll. Sorry. You know what I mean?
Or you just call the police hoping it's going to go well, and then the police show up and it goes worse.
Yeah.
So I'm in Santa Rosa, California, right? So in Pengrove, California, about 20 miles south of me, this family, they had a 9-year-old son and a 14-year-old son. And the 9-year-old son had some mental whatever. A lot of people do now, right? That's a whole nother podcast. Why? But anyway, the 9-year-old kid had some mental issues. The brothers got in an argument, and the 9-year-old pulled a knife on the 14-year-old. Tony, the parents called the police. The police came and shot their kid in front of them.
Wow. Well, I mean,
it was a 9-year-old kid with a knife, Tony. Like, you mean to tell me that our big ass badass police can't fucking tackle a 9-year-old kid and take the knife out of his hand without shooting him? Right?
Police make the situation worse. Just that's nightmare stuff.
I mean, that's not what we want.
Anyway, Waver, I'm going to have to say goodnight here.
Well, once again, it's been fantastic, Tony, and we are up to 9 outlets now for our podcast. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're on Stitcher. We're basically on everything you want to see a podcast on, so please listen to our podcast. If you're listening to it on anchor.fm, feel free to chime in. You can do that under comments. You can leave a 1-minute comment. And Tony, I look forward to the next one. This has been a fantastic conversation.
All right, thanks for tuning in for another episode of And Another Thing with Dave. Please catch us on many of our outlets, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many others. And Another Thing with Dave. Peace out.